All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of CO Pod. I'm your host, Caroline, and today I'm joined with a very special guest. We are here with Brian Keller, who is the CEO of Quest Building Corporation. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Caroline. How are you doing?
Doing good. How's the weather over there?
It's a little warm, but not too bad. It's pretty typical this time of year. So,
Nice. We're starting to get into the hot months here, so I'm trying to check in with all my people about the weather, but California's been looking good so far. So fingers crossed it stays that way. Awesome. Well, let's kick it off. So, Brian, I would love it if you could give all of our listeners and our viewers just a little brief overview about who you are, a little bit about your background.
okay. So we started our construction company back in 1998. Me personally, I started in construction when I was very young with my dad, probably running crews since I was 15. So, date myself a little, that puts me at about 45 years doing that. And so when we started our company, it was just rough framing, just kind of four guys out of the back of our truck. Um, we started it to kind of uh, try and figure out a better way to appreciate employees. Growing up in construction, especially uh, in the rough framing side of it, there's not always a lot of appreciation for the trade itself. And the previous employer that we had worked for didn't seem to value the employee as much as we had hoped. So when we started our company, we really wanted to put a focus on valuing the employee and trying to figure out ways to give them benefits and in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, that's a story that we hear a lot, about, not so much, companies currently, but if you date it back, what, 20, 25 years, it's a very common origin story that I've heard quite a few times.
Yeah, the I guess the reputation or the stigma from 20 25 years ago was construction or construction workers were not kind of valued, were not they were more looked kind of down upon. And so we've really worked, especially in the last probably 10 years, 15 years, to really try and change that. That's another reason why we started the company, was really try and change that perspective and kind of make it appear and give people the information that it's a more honorable profession.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's awesome. And with, over 40 years in the industry, like you mentioned, 40 years young, by the way, we love that. So, think about when you first started into where you are now. How has your leadership style kind of evolved, with, creating this company, really focusing on the workers and changing that perception? How has that leadership style evolved from when you were, 15 running crews to where you are now?
Well, and like looking back on it, the biggest thing I noticed and kind of talked to people about is we were never taught how to lead. If you had the skills, you were put into a position to lead people, and then you were just required to lead those people. But nobody ever really taught how to do that. So, like I would say my teaching style changed from telling people what to do to teaching people what to do, just because looking back, nobody ever really taught leadership. And I know even in a lot of companies today, not just construction, but just in general, there's not a lot of leadership training. So we really, like probably 10, 15 years ago, I made that a big focus for myself. One, I kind of realized I wasn't a very good leader. I was a really good carpenter. Like I'm really good at the construction side of it, but leading people and growing people and developing people, I just didn't know how to do that. So spent a lot of time researching, learning, finding experts in the field and developing our own programs to be able to teach that internally.
Yeah, leadership and, becoming a leader from someone who was, a doer. It's such a different jump and it's such a different beast. Like people sometimes they'll think, the leaders have it good, you're just delegating tasks, but it's like, no, like this is a whole different skill set. than what you were used to.
Yeah, and especially today because you're dealing with so much more like psychological. Like I, when I teach leadership, I try to really help people understand that you are dealing with the whole person. Like again, when we came up, you went to work, you probably got yelled at most of the day. You went home, you weren't really appreciated for being a person. You were just a cog in the wheel, and you were there to perform a task. And so we really have to look at it differently, especially with just the way things have evolved with people and personalities and younger people and the how they look for appreciation from other people. You really have to learn how to deal with the entire person, and there's a psychological element to that that you got to learn.
Yeah, what have been some kind of like, learning curves for you in that whole process? What has challenged you there?
I would say probably being patient has probably been one of my biggest challenges. Kind of as I transferred, duties and responsibilities to others, a big thing has been just kind of that letting go and letting them. You got to let them fail a little bit, try to be there to catch them, but probably that the transition of more the watcher and the standing back and watching them and making, just making sure they have the information, but not the doing anymore. For probably 20 some years of our company, I did almost everything, from the accounting side, plus still worked out in the field. And so, really, in the last year and a half, we've transitioned into handing a lot of those duties off to other people. So, just being patient is probably a big thing.
Yeah, and while we're on this topic of leadership and leadership training, so you're credited with overseeing all of this training at QBC. What does a successful leadership pipeline look like at QBC for you guys?
So the first thing we're looking for is the type of person, and this kind of goes to a little bit how we hire. But uh, do they have the ambition, and then do they understand what it actually means to lead people? So when we start, and we've run probably, I think I'm on my fourth or fifth class of my entry level leadership, and some of them have gone on to the elite level leadership. The elite level leaders, the ones who go through that training, are the ones who recommend the next group. And they really need to be people who are, they have some good skill sets, but they have the right attitude. They're showing up, they're asking what they can do, they're really trying to be more initiative out in the field, and even internally in the office. Just really showing that initiative that they want to do more, become more, grow more into different positions in the company.
Yeah, I think it's really cool how you guys have this whole leadership training program because, a lot of companies will have, training programs for, tasks that they need to do, for the type of work that they do. But I feel like very rarely we see, especially construction companies, coming out with actual leadership training and giving their employees, a pipeline to, grow in that company. Are you seeing anyone else do this as well, or is this kind of more unique to QBC?
Yeah, I have really not come across what we're doing with any other companies. I get a lot of, wow, that's really interesting, or yeah, that must really be helpful. But I haven't really come across any companies that are doing this type of leadership training, especially in the construction industry. So it is, I would really like to, see more people kind of gravitate towards leadership. We teach it so much internally with our leaders that work with other companies and work with the leadership out in the field, that they get a sense of who we are, communication, all the different things that we do and teach with our leadership. It would be encouraging to see some other companies maybe gravitate towards some leadership training.
I completely agree there. I feel like that is something, if you're a company that's really trying to attract that new generation of talent, I feel like that's something you need. Um, yeah, I really do.
Yeah, to be able to show, especially the younger people, that there's an opportunity to be able to move up. A lot of times, especially in construction, you go into companies and the senior people are older, a lot older, and the young people are like, oh well, there's no room for me at the top. We are continually telling our people there is plenty of room at the top. You just have to work through the programs and work through the training to get there. But the biggest thing we've found is the growth that we've seen would not be achievable if we didn't have the leadership. You can have a ton of people working for you, but if you don't have leadership, it just kind of turns into chaos.
Yes, lots of chaos. No one wants chaos.
We experienced a lot of that chaos early before we really started working on the leadership programs.
So what, like, in those early days, what actually pushed you to create these leadership programs?
So this was probably around 2010 or so, and we were at about 35 employees. At that time, we were only doing rough framing, and we just couldn't seem to grow. Like we couldn't seem to take on more work. We couldn't seem to perform at a little bit higher level. And at that time, I was getting introduced to some leadership people and some personal development coaches and different types of opportunities. And the thing I learned was is that we were not leading well. We were all really good at the skill set. We were just not developing leadership people and leadership teams and hierarchy. And so we just could not grow beyond that 35 employee range. At that time, I kind of realized I was the main problem because I wasn't teaching leadership. I was just telling everybody what to do. So I spent a couple of years really researching, going to seminars, going to events, learning from leadership experts, and developing this program that we developed to be able to start teaching. And as soon as we started doing that, we really noticed a significant difference in the way our our foremen and the project managers were managing their people, managing their projects. The culture started to change, morale started to change, people started to see opportunity for themselves. It really changed the dynamic of our company.
That's incredible, and sometimes it's hard, not even just as a leader, but as a person to look at yourself and say, "I'm actually the problem," and do that introspective thinking and work on yourself to, benefit everything else around you.
Yeah, I think the most significant thing that I learned at that time was from Jim Rohn, not personally, but through his teachings, was if you will change, everything will change, but if you won't change, nothing will change. And that hit me really good. That kind of opened up my eyes that for us to grow and become, a better company, a stronger company, and even grow in the market, I really had to start with changing who I was as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think one of the biggest things that, I think it takes time for people to understand that sometimes, but I feel like once you get that like little golden nugget of knowledge, it just all the doors start opening up. So that's incredible.
Yeah, and it seems like the opportunities just, I used to go from kind of a mindset of not everybody's out to get me, but more of a scarcity mindset. And from learning those kind of things, it changed it to everybody's out to help me. And now, really, I really experience that a lot. I teach it a lot. I see our teams experiencing that people really are out to help them if they approach it in the right way.
Yes, it's all about the approach. I do want to switch gears here a little bit. It's kind of along the same lines. Your training programs, they're very attractive to the next generation. And that is one of the big issues we're having in the industry. I'm sure everyone who is an avid listener of this podcast is probably sick and tired of hearing me talk about the labor shortage, but I just need to drill it into everyone's minds because it is such a real issue that we're facing now, that we're going to face in 5 years, 10 years.
Right.
So it is really important for companies to adopt, different strategies to bring in this new talent. And I think that these leadership trainings that you guys do and showing these young people that there actually is a path and a career in construction is huge. But what else do you guys do to help attract and retain that new talent?
So one of the first things we did, and we only did this about probably a little over a year ago. We happened to be at an event. I had a bunch of leadership with me, and I just kind of heard somebody talking about hiring people, and we're in a group of about 100 people, and they were saying, there's just no good people out there. And the person who was presenting, who was up there talking to everybody, he said, you know what? He said, there's good people out there, but good people don't work for shitty bosses. And I was like, holy crap, he's right. So what we did is not that we did do a little introspection, kind of looked at ourselves a little bit. What are we doing? What could we change? But the biggest thing we took away from that is we were not hiring correctly because we were hiring from the wrong mindset of there's no good people out there. So shifting our mindset, they're out there. We just need to find out how to get them, how to find them. And I had read this story about this guy who trekked across the South Pole back in the 1700s, and he had put an ad in the paper, and the ad said, "You're most likely going to die. There's no money. There's no reward. This is going to be a terrible experience. Other than we will accomplish it." And what ended up happening with the event was they got landlocked by ice and they had to walk. But nobody died because of the way he hired, because of the way he recruited. And so when we came back, we changed how we recruited. We told people how difficult the work was, how many long hours you work. We really painted not a grim picture, but a very accurate picture of our company. But we also said at the end of the day, we get it done. Like we get some stuff done. And you're going to be able to stand back and be proud of that. You're going to be part of a team that's proud of getting stuff done, working together and accomplishing great things. And then we wrote up a persona of the ideal person who works for us. And we all reviewed it and kind of finalized it. And then we made every employee sign it. And essentially what we said is to work here, you have to either be this person or work to become this person. And if not, you probably won't work here that long. And once we made that change and started hiring according to those kind of principles and that ideal, and then changed our hiring process too. We have a better 3-step process that we use now for interview. The people we got were the right people.
Yeah. That document sounds like the Declaration of QBC. You should have it framed up in the office somewhere.
Yep. Yeah. Every new person has to read it and then sign it.
That's awesome. And I think it's so important, especially early on in that hiring process, if not right at the beginning, is being clear and transparent about, what the work is, what the company is, everything. So it's so important to retaining that talent because, you give them one set of expectations of this is what it's like, and they come in and it's not like that at all.
Yeah, we really take time now in our interview process to really establish that expectation from both sides. I don't do any of the hiring. One, I'm not very good at it because I think they say I'm a little too optimistic and I want to hire everybody. Um, but what they do is they really talk about who we are and then try to find out who the person is, and then do we have alignment there? And if we have alignment, if they really understand. So one of the things they'll always ask is, have you done any research on our company? Have you gone to our website? And if they haven't done any research to find out who we are, they typically don't get a second interview. We really need them to understand, we're a very fast-paced company, a lot of pressure. We get it done, and we need people. So the ones who really look into our company are like, well, that's what I want to work for. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. And if there's one thing I know about QBC is you guys get it done and you get it done the right way and quickly.
Yeah.
So, but we're talking about bringing in all of this new talent, which is great. But then, as you're thinking about scaling a company, bringing in new people, the issue then kind of shifts to, okay, so how do we keep that same company culture? How do we keep that?
Right. So a couple of things that we realized as we shifted the way we started hiring, and especially like with the transition with the administrative staff and me offloading, a half a dozen different tasks to a half a dozen different people, was that there are people out there who love to do everything that needs to get done. Like we have a person that estimates for us, and everybody calls him a machine just because of how good he is at it, how fast and everything that he does. And I always remind people there are people who love to do everything it is that we need to do. We just need to find them. So the biggest thing is getting the right person. So that's finding that person who fits our culture and agrees to kind of our persona. As soon as we find the right person, then it's really making sure they're in the right seat. So one thing that we really talk to people about is we want to make sure they're doing what kind of lights them up, what lights their fire, what really energizes them. The last thing you want to do is have somebody who's really talented and has the right kind of attitude to mesh with your company, but you have them doing the wrong thing and they don't enjoy it. So that's a big thing that's really helped us a lot. And then we have a lot of communication with our new employees. We like to check in with them every 60 days or whatever, uh, on a more, I guess you would say, personal level. How are things going? We have a thing that we learn to kind of sit down with the employees and talk about their personal, professional, and financial goals over the next 3 to 5 years. What's it look like? How do we help them get there? The big thing is letting our employees know that we want them to invest in our company with their time. We want to invest in their future with how we can help them achieve it. And so we're continually talking about that in our review process, developing our culture. A new thing that we're working on that we're kind of in the process of, I think we've been working on it 8 months, is developing these tenets that we kind of govern our company by. I think we have 13 of them. They're kind of our pillars. And we just kind of rate people based on those different ideals, like being a servant, commitment, integrity, a few different things like that, innovative, wisdom, and just really working that into our culture has really helped a lot. Because people, one thing that I learned in all the research that I did is people will do more for kind of recognition than they will do for money. And most people really want to be part of something bigger than themselves. And what happens in a lot of companies when they get there is they can't see it. So they can't see their future role in what you're going to do as a company. And so they get lost and then they just feel like a number or a cog. So one thing we try to do is really help them. Like when I was teaching, I was talking to leadership and I was teaching the other day. I said, you guys are very young. You haven't, and most of them I think were under the age of 25. Like it was a pretty young group. It was 25 or 28, something like that. But they were pretty young. But explaining to them that our growth, if we even just grow 4 times, which our growth is much bigger than that, our plan, but 4 times that, we're going to need people to lead all those people, and they're the ones that could do it. So really helping paint that vision, I think, is critical for especially businesses today, hiring new young people who are just so connected to the world that you really need to help them see what their future looks like with you.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's so unique about Gen Z is, they want to see the bigger picture. They're not going to come to the job site because they have, well, of course they have bills to pay, but that's not the only reason they're there. They're there because of, a higher purpose, or, they want to see their work in fruition. So I think it's really incredible to really be fostering that with them, and not, just throwing them on a job and saying, okay, here you go, do this, on to the next, kind of taking that time with them, I think is so important, especially to Gen Z.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they are your number one asset. One thing that we started a few years ago, as I go into, there's a high school. They have a construction program, which is a really nice program. They work on rough framing, siding, roofing, uh, plumbing, electrical, concrete, bricklaying, everything. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to go down and start working with the students, helping them build these small buildings. I've been doing that now. I think I started in 2018. We took a break during COVID. We weren't able to go, but I've been going every year. And so we're trying to recruit some of those students coming out of high school, showing them that there is a good opportunity. And especially now with just what's happening in the market, there's good opportunity for income as well. Some of these kids can come to school making anywhere between 20 and $25 an hour just to start.
Yeah, and I feel like, with all of this that everyone's been doing, with technology and everything, I feel like, and this is where we connect on being optimists, but I feel like, I think we're shifting the narrative of construction as a career for these young people. We look back 40, 50 years ago, and, it was, the stereotype was, okay, well, you're not smart enough to go to college, you go to construction. which if you've been in construction, you know just how wrong that is. Like, construction takes physicality and brains, so I think we're shifting that narrative. Correct me if I'm being too optimistic here, but it's
No, yeah, I think we've done a good job in the last couple of years of really letting especially the younger group know that this is an honorable profession. You do need some skills. Um, so we really, like when I'm down there working with the students, any opportunity I get to talk to students, especially young people, really helping them to understand that this is a noble profession, and really not everybody can do it. It's one of those things that's just not for everybody. It's more like you said, it used to be if you couldn't do this, you went into construction. Now we're really seeing a little bit of a shift that you may not even be able to do this. The education that it takes, you're not necessarily going to get in school. You're going to do better hands on, but it's a lot to learn what you need to learn today to be really good in construction.
yeah. I mean, I know just for myself, I have so much respect for everyone out in the field because I know there's no way in hell I could do that. You would tell me what to do and it would go in one ear, out the other. So it really is such an incredible career path that I think gets looked over so much. And I'm so glad that we still have a long way to go, but we're sort of shifting that narrative. I think is awesome.
Yeah, and for us, the big focus is letting them know we're going to teach them. Like we're going to coach them and teach them, and I think that was a kind of a stereotypical thing way back then. As you get into construction, you're going to learn as you do, but you're probably not going to get to you're not going to be able to go at the pace you want to go. You're going to go at the pace of whatever the people in the company that you're working for are. And if they have a bunch of people at the top, you're just going to be the person carrying lumber and doing all the grunt work. And we really shifted that focus, especially in our company, that we don't hire anybody to come in at entry level and stay there. Like our focus is really as much education as fast as you can get it to move yourself into a higher level.
Yeah. And, I kind of want to switch gears here a little bit. We're talking about all of this with bringing in the new generation. Of course, this has to lead me to technology and innovations in the industry in that realm. That was actually one of the biggest things that I noticed about QBC. You guys, you're incredibly people centric, but you're also incredibly technologically advanced, you know?
Yeah. So and recently, especially like in the last 2 years, we really made a significant kind of decision to really grow and really just become a much better, stronger company, and also a legacy company that we could. We're setting it up to go from generation to generation to generation. This will be our goal as a generational company. And to do that, one thing we've talked about is you just really have to keep up with what's happening. I know they say there was a lot of research done years ago about how fast technology has changed from like the 1900s to 2000, then from 2000 to 2010, from 2010 to 2020, and from 20 to 25, and just how fast it's exponentially changing. So one thing we're always looking at is what new thing can we use from a technology standpoint that can improve our efficiency overall as a company. And I would say the latest things are NetSuite that we're using. We're implementing, integrating into our system right now. Been working on that for about 6, 8 months. We're super excited about Lumberfy, which will be our time tracking and payroll system. And then we have another new one for estimating called Stack CT. Goal is to get all of these to work together to be able to just share and move information and reduce a lot of data entry. And then another thing, like our marketing team looks at, is a lot of AI. How can we use AI in our company? So we use it in our meetings. We use it. We use it everywhere we can possibly. Like I'm always pushing them to find new ways to use it. Um, and I think a lot of the things I always kind of joke that the thing we'll probably kind of make the most money on, or that'll be our biggest revenue source, we haven't even started it yet. Like it's going to come from some kind of technology that we're going to come across that's going to help us be innovative in something that we're not even doing yet, that'll really allow us to achieve exponential growth. So I love the technology side. I know I have some people who've been here a while are like, well, I'm not good with computers. I have one of our owners yesterday. We were spending a little time together, and he was saying, "Yeah, that's something I'm going to have to get better at." So I'm like, "Yep, we'll just have to work on it." But yeah, technology. If you're not embracing it, you are just going to get left behind.
Yeah, and we see that a lot too. And, thinking back to when you guys, were thinking about putting together this tech stack with, NetSuite, Lumber, Stack, how did you create this tech stack? I see a lot of times, companies want to get more involved in all the technology out there, but there's so much that they don't even know where to start. Where did you guys start? How did you kind of develop that?
So it started with NetSuite, and what we've used QuickBooks since the beginning, so 25 years. And what was happening was is we move at a very fast pace with everything. And so like I kind of joke with my team, like I know it can be challenging keeping up with me, so sometimes you got to tell me that you're not able to keep up with me. And so we're running out of QuickBooks, we're working out of QuickBooks, and it's glitching on us, like it's rebooting, and we work through a cloud system, so everything's on the cloud, which I can tell people if you're not using cloud systems, you are way behind the eight ball. Yeah, so we were just having all these glitch problems where now it's a payroll day and it's not working, we can't get in there, or they're updating the system and it takes a couple of days and we can't do our work. And so our admin team, there was I think probably three of us that were like, okay, we got to come up with something different. So we just went out and researched what's the best uh, accounting software platform in the market today. And NetSuite came up at the top of a few different things when we were looking, and it's way more than we need. Like it is, it is a lot. The thing when we called and talked to them, the biggest thing is that we can use it all in one system. So the one challenge we have is we have multiple companies that we run. Well, in QuickBooks, you have to open a company, close a company, open a company, close a company, open a company. And with this one, we can operate all of it together. It all integrates together much more seamlessly. And the opportunity to grow our company and this thing will be able to keep up was a big deciding factor for us. So it kind of came out of necessity, which I guess a lot of things do. But we did years ago. Like we started setting up everything we have is cloud based. So all of our documents, all of our data, everything we do is cloud based in the sense that now I can work from home, access it. I don't need a server at the office. And it's all secured. It's it's highly encrypted. So it's not just that it's cloud based, but it's highly encrypted, cloud based, well protected, accessible to our team, in certain situations. And you just got to get going with all this technology. And one thing we noticed with NetSuite, it's a lot more. Uh, there's a lot more going on in the system, but we feel we will reduce the amount of people we need to hire to be able to operate it. Same with like Lumberfy is going to probably eliminate one HR person for us. Stack CT, we figure it'll eliminate at least one or two estimating people that we'll need. Like, so we're not just doing it because it's the new thing to be doing, but also we look at the financial side of it and what does it do for our company? Well, yes, it does cost more, but we're paying for that in reduced labor. Because when we went to NetSuite, we went to the team and we said, hey, here's what it's going to cost. And so I had each person kind of do a cost analysis of how much time they spent in QuickBooks and with the new system and what it would do, how much time they would save. And we came out that it would more than pay for itself in a very short period of time.
That's awesome. And with all of this technology, we're in construction. I know I've probably beat this horse to death, but our industry sometimes is a little bit more hesitant to change. But being such a forward thinking company, you guys are changing right and left. What kind of advice would you have to other companies who are maybe, a little bit more hesitant to that technology change, the shift? How would you kind of inspire or give advice to them?
Well, one thing, like for us, it used to be everybody carried a notepad. Now everybody carries iPads. Like all our leadership is equipped with iPads. The thing that I think people should really remember about that is the access. So our teams can go out in the field and they can access a set of blueprints and blow them up on their iPad and look at a detail versus trying to carry around a set of blueprints, thumbing through the pages and then trying to figure out where to put that. They have this little electronic tool that gives them access to every kind of information they would need to be able to perform their job. So, for companies that struggle with thinking that it's going to work, or the amount that it's going to save them and the amount of time that they spend with communication is just incredible. It's communication on the fly at all the time. Like our teams, a lot of times it's email. They're emailing back and forth, and they're accessing documents, and they're being able to communicate real time with what's happening. They don't have to come to the back to the office to get a set of plans. They don't have to come back to the office to look anything up. They don't have to call anybody to find something. It's literally at their fingertips. And so I think for these companies that are a little apprehensive, you are going to go through some challenges in learning it. One thing, maybe find somebody, or find Google or YouTube. You can learn anything in about 15 minutes. Yeah. So for those that are really reluctant to jump on board with the technology, one, I think you just really have to do it. The benefits are going to outweigh any challenges you're going to go through, and it's what's going to allow you to compete in the market. Because if you're not doing it, I can tell you, 5 years from now, you won't be able to compete in the market.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be tough, and I mean, I'm sure it's probably tough now, but I mean, looking in 5 years, woof. It's going to be even tougher, and there's going to be even more solutions out there. Which is kind of a blessing and a curse. It's great to have all of these new solutions, but then the selection process becomes even more difficult.
Yep, and you got to spend a little time figuring out what works for you, what systems. We're a very systems oriented company, so we're always looking and evaluating systems. I always tell my team, try to figure out what works for you. If it doesn't work, try something different. Keep trying until you figure out what works. I always joke that we got closets full of shoes that just don't work, and it's okay. You just got to keep going until you find those systems and processes that work well for you.
Exactly. Let's see, Brian, I think I have time for one more question here for you. This will probably be the hardest question I ask you all day, so apologies in advance. What is one piece of advice you have for young construction professionals?
The biggest advice I would give them is decide who you want to be and what you want to do with your company or your organization, and then find a mentor. Odds are somebody's already done it. So just do some research, especially now with Google, and there's books and there's all different kinds, and you can reach podcasts, you can find people, you can find me to help you, but find somebody that can help you map out a path. Because the biggest thing that I learned is I didn't know what I didn't know because I didn't know it. The reason I didn't know it is because I didn't know the questions to ask, and I didn't know who to go to. And in today's market, there's people you can go to, but you still may not know the questions to ask. So find somebody who's done what you want to do, and kind of go work with them, have them be your mentor.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And, we'll put down in our description, we'll put a link to your LinkedIn. So if anyone is interested in reaching out, if they have any questions, you can contact Brian through there. If we get his permission, maybe we'll put his email there. Who knows?
Yep,
But good.
yep, we're good.
Awesome. Well, then we'll put that down there for you guys as well. We'll also put some links to the QBC website if you're interested in checking it out, seeing what projects they're working on, and just how amazing they are online as well.
All right.
Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. This was such a great episode. And personally, I had a lot of fun talking with you, and I really actually learned a lot that I'm going to take back from this. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Caroline.
Awesome. Well, everyone else, have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for tuning in to CO Pod, and we'll see you next time.